What's up, A to Z Sports here live on a Tuesday. It is still game week. It's the first game week in the 2025 Titans season with a preseason game coming up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Saturday night, which means, JT, we've got a depth chart. It's as unofficial as it could possibly be because it's the first one. It's the first officially unofficial depth chart for the Tennessee Titans, and that means we get to dissect it. What matters? What doesn't matter? I think it's pretty clear that there are things that fit both categories of what matters about this depth chart and what doesn't. We individually came up with 3 things that matter and 3 things that don't matter. I don't know if JT is going to have a crossover with mine or not, but we'll ask you guys as well what you think about what matters most and what does not matter most with this unofficial official depth chart here going on this game week, because they have to do this. Is like an NFL mandatory thing of like, if you have a game, then you have to give a depth chart. And so it's like, well, whose assignment on the staff is it to fill out said depth chart? So we'll do that. We'll talk about what matters and what doesn't. And then we get to throw shade at the end of the show. And we will maybe discuss a topic that we have coming up later in the week. But JT, welcome in. Let's get this thing off and rolling.
Good morning, A to Z crew. Good to be here with you guys. Like you said, it is game week. The Titans are so close to playing against other teams, including this week with the joint practices upcoming when they make their trip to Tampa Bay. Daniel in the comments here says it perfectly. It's officially the first unofficial depth chart. That is the perfect way to say it, with how, unserious the thing is, because it is going to change, right?
Sure.
But it is the first glimpse into what we think the coaches are thinking, and that is an important topic to talk about. So good to see you all in here. Reminder to like the show this morning. Make sure you are liking the show and make sure you are subscribed to the show. Make sure that subscribe button has a little D at the end, and I think we're ready to get off and rolling.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcome in to A to Z Sports here live on a Tuesday. I'm Austin Stanley. He is JT Runke. We are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Link to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content, including leaving us a 5-star Google review. That goes a long way for us, and it helps out our company quite a bit. Got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process. See them in Lebanon or online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care, and our friends at Barton Drury Insurance Group, customized solutions for all of your insurance needs. They are local to the Nashville area, and also hit them up online at bartondrury.com. So, the first official, unofficial depth chart. So, some people are saying like there's a lot that's going to change here, right? I saw a comment coming in, says Brandon says the chart will shift even more before the weekend. I'm not married to it. Nobody should be married to a depth chart that gets released on the eve of the first preseason game. But I'm honestly not sure how much this is going to change, which I don't know. I don't want to get into too much of my opinions on this, but let's just go ahead and get our first run through on the official depth chart here, because we've got the offense here with Cam Ward as rookies are underlined. Cam Ward is quarterback number 1, no surprise there, but starting wide receivers are the veterans Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and Van Jefferson. Tony Pollard, the running back starter. Chig Okonkwo, the starter at tight end. Then left to right on your offensive line, Dan Moore Jr., Peter Skoronski, Corey Levin, who is in for the PUP'd recovering injured Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler on the right guard spot, and then J.C. Latham there at right tackle. There are no true surprises on the starting offensive unit. Now let's flip to the defensive unit, where you've got Sebastian Joseph Day at 1 defensive end, Devondre Sweat nose tackle, Jeff Simmons D-line, and then the edge rusher of Arden Key. No surprise there. Inside linebacker, James Williams Sr. next to veteran addition Cody Barton. Outside linebacker, Draymond Jones there to set the other edge. And then you've got Jarvis Brownlee Jr. in the one corner with Rodney McCreary in the slot, 2 safeties, Amani Hooker, Xavier Woods, and Daryl Baker Jr., the cornerback, is currently the starting corner as L'Jarius Sneed in parentheses in the bottom right corner on the PUP list there. So really no surprises there at all. Then we get the special teamers here to wrap this up. Kicker and kickoff guy is Joey Sly. Punter and holder is Johnny Hecker. Punt returner James Prochet. Kick returner Jaquan Jackson. And long snapper Morgan Cox. So no real surprises there. We'll get into the return thing later on in the show, though. But a thing that matters, number one, and I'm just going to throw this out there. It matters that Cam Ward's quarterback one, right? Like, there is no question. I don't even know. Like, I'm just going to ask you this question, JT. If Will Levis did not decide to end his season prematurely with a shoulder surgery that happened late last month, what would the quarterback official depth chart look like to you? Like, just again, this is not reality, but where do we think the Titans would have put the quarterbacks there? Like, would Cam still be like right there at one? Or would it be in college depth charts, they do like starter or starter, like A or B? Would it be an A or B situation where they play games like that? Or would it just be pretty much just the same?
Well, that's kind of the thing that's going on up north with the Ponies in Indianapolis. They listed Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones as their starter right now. I don't think that would have been the case, if I'm being completely honest. That just doesn't seem like where this team would be headed. That doesn't seem like where the coaching staff would be. I saw a tongue-in-cheek comment here where it said Vrabel would have had Cam listed as third because that's kind of how they operated.
Right? Yeah.
But that's just not how Brian Callahan and their staff operates. I think it's been clear from the day that Cam Ward is drafted, even though they didn't want to say it, that Cam Ward was going to be the QB1 on this team. And I think the depth chart kind of reflects that. I don't think it would have changed if Will Levis was here. Now, you could say, I guess, if Will Levis was here, maybe he thought he would have had a better chance at that spot. I don't think that would have changed any designation, but maybe in his mind, he would have thought he had a better spot. But for the coaches, I think this has been the plan all along. And I think the depth chart was always going to reflect that Cam Ward is the QB number one.
Yep. Certainly seems that way. So that matters. So today's show is going to be going down a list of things that matter with this first depth chart and things that don't matter with this first depth chart. So in order for you guys to have a good opinion on this, we talked to the starters here, right? So now let's go through the backups, the second string group on this first depth chart. So offensively, the backup quarterback is Brandon Allen, with Tim Boyle being the third string. The running back backup is Tajay Spears with rookie late round pick Khalil Mullings there. And then you have the Julius Chestnut, Jordan Mims, and Jamar Jefferson trio at the end. The second flight of receivers is kind of what we've seen in training camp thus far. Bryce Oliver backs up Calvin Ridley. Yes. Rookie Chimere Dike backs up Tyler Lockett in the slot. Yeah. And Alec Iomander backs up Van Jefferson at the other wide receiver spot. Then you get into the tight end position with Gunnar Helm backing up Chika Okonkwo alongside DMR, David Martin Robinson, the undrafted free agent rookie from a year ago who made the team, is now putting himself in a really good spot there too. And then the backup offensive line from left to right, John Ojukwu, the backup left tackle, Andrew Rupchich, the backup left guard, Sam Mustipher, the backup center, Blake Hance, the backup right guard. However, Hance has missed a lot of time. So, for example, Kevin Zeitler did not practice on Sunday. Andrew Rupchich was the starting right guard, with Zeitler getting the veteran day off. And then Jalen Duncan is the backup at right tackle. Defensively, you've got your second group as Carlos Watkins, who got hurt on Sunday too, by the way. Timmy Horn and James Lynch, guys that you probably have not heard of much. Femi Oladejo backs up Arden Key. Cedric Gray backing up James Williams. Otis Reese backing up Cody Barton. And Jahad Ward backing up Draymond Jones. The secondary second team is the one that's been getting torched by the other offenses throughout the last week. Marcus Harris, the rookie, Gabe Judy-Lawley, second-year guy out of Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and BYU. Mike Brown, Kevin Winston Jr., Gabe Judy-Lawley again, and then Jalen Kimber. So I do think that's kind of the backup situation there. So let's go ahead and get into what matters most. Knowing that I had 4 what matters most, or what actually matters. Cam Ward was one of my 4. So now I have 3. JT, you also have 3 things that matter from this official depth chart for this Bucks game coming up for the preseason opener. So let's ask the chat here this morning, JT, what matters most from this Titans first unofficial depth chart? And we can remove Cam Ward being quarterback 1 from consideration. So what matters most with this first unofficial depth chart for the Titans? We'll get to your opinions here in a second, but I'm going to tell you guys about our friends at Lipscomb University and their sports analytics program. Guys, they are really changing the game when it comes to grad programs across the country. One of the first in a growing industry of sports analytics programs. Lipscomb University right here in Nashville, Tennessee is really pushing the envelope with their online grad program with sports analytics. You don't have to be in Nashville. You can be anywhere and sign up for this program. They have already met their goals for this upcoming semester, which is phenomenal to hear with such a new program and continuing to grow that as well. So make sure that if you are an upcoming senior in college, maybe you have a family friend, a son or daughter, somebody you know who is a passionate sports fan that is in college looking for that next level to level up with their career. Or maybe it's just like you need to go back to school. Maybe you're not in love with what you're doing for a living, but you want to chase that passion and turn it into a career, just like several of us have. You can do that, and Lipscomb Sports Analytics is a way and a path forward to doing that. So check them out online with Lipscomb University Sports Analytics Program.
Yeah, guys, make sure you are liking the show if you came in late. Good to see you guys here. We are talking about what matters and does not matter with the Titans' first official, unofficial depth chart this morning. And we'll get to your answers here in just a second. But make sure you guys are liking the show and make sure you are subscribed. Let's get to some of these answers here in the chat. Jeff says the wide receiver and Xavier Estrepo being buried at the bottom of the depth chart. I think that one is an interesting one, apparently. Matters most. Brandon says the guys in parentheses, Lloyd Cushenberry and L'Jarius Sneed, matters most to him. Daniel says Helm at the tight end 2 spot matters most to him. Let's see what else you guys say here. Chris says Jaquan Jackson as a kickoff returner, not the punt returner. James Prochet is the first official punt returner, matters most to him. Ira Hoshi says Baker starting at corner outside. Sneed is clearly not healthy. He lied. I don't know truly about that. He's on PUP, so he just cannot be
he's not
healthy yet.
Did L'Jarius Sneed lie?
Oh, true. Okay, fair enough. Daniel saying Ojukwu backing up the questionable Dan Moore matters to him. Let's see who else we have here.
Can we time out on that one? Because the questionable Dan Moore is how that comment was phrased. I feel like this. I feel like the fan base. Look, every fan base deals with trauma, right? Just like every human being deals with trauma from their past, right? I feel like this fan base's current trauma is the left tackle position, or just the tackle position in general. And so when they signed Dan Moore for a bunch of money, and you Googled who was the worst tackle in the NFL last year, and Dan Moore's the AI overview answer just because of one particular stat that had zero context, because Dan Moore was credited with 12 sacks allowed last year because Justin Fields and Russell Wilson can't throw the football or avoid pressure at times. That leads to Dan Moore having that stat. But Dan Moore has been so quiet. And Easton's talked about this. We've talked about this in person. It's like, we haven't, like, people have asked about Dan Moore, but the people are like, oh, Dan Moore's must be terrible because nobody's talking about it. When all we've talked about the last few years is how bad the tackle position is. And I made a bit by going to Arden Key after every practice 2 camps ago. I guess 3 camps ago, if you include this one. Arden's first camp with the Titans, when he was just whooping Andre Dillard left and right, up and down, threw him and over him, side to side, all that. I made a bit of asking Arden Key after every practice how many sacks. And he'd say 7, 8, 4. Only 3 today. Like, how many sacks? Because Arden Key looked like he was freaking TJ Watt. He wasn't.
Yeah.
And Andre Dillard was bad. He looked like saloon doors, and he was. And so, but now we haven't, like, nobody's asking Arden Key how many sacks. Nobody's asking anybody how many sacks. Dennis Daly retired. Andre Dillard got cut again. Nicholas Petit-Frere can't find a job because the Niners signed him for 3 days and decided that his guy's awful. And so we have not talked about Dan Moore really at all. 2 thumbs up. That's awesome. That's good. You don't want to. So is he questionable? I don't know. Is he worth the contract? That's what the buying price is on free agency. So I think that is, yeah, Bork says, we thought the Arden Key bit was a joke, but it was actually a prophecy. Yeah, it absolutely was. But I think that the questionable Dan Moore, we haven't been talking about him. We should continue to not have to talk about it.
Yeah, I was going to say the only time that he's really been noticeable was Arden Key did finally, you bring that up, he finally got his one big moment on Sunday's practice, which was a bad practice for the offensive line, where he did get the best of Dan Moore on 1 rep and decide to scream sack because it was a clear and obvious sack. He beat Dan Moore, I think, for the first time on Sunday. So, first time in like 5 days of padded practice, which is the first time I've had to mention Dan Moore in 11 on 11s, I should say, because he's been mentioned in 1-on-1s, which is a totally different drill. Bill Callahan was talking about how he is still progressing and learning the Bill Callahan way of life, so to say, but we have not been talking about him every single practice, which I think is definitely different than anything else that we've had to talk about with the left tackle position for the last 3 years.
Yeah, and DeMario is correct. Dan Moore has been solid so far. Joint practice will show more of Dan, good or bad. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. And obviously the game. We'll find out. We'll talk later in the week of how much are some of these starters going to play. So are there – let's go ahead and get to one of them because I'm sure there are plenty of other answers of what matters most from this depth chart. So, JT, you have 3 things on what matter. I have 3 things on what matter. I'll let you start. Are you going to offense or defense?
I'm going to go offense first.
Okay.
I have one on offense and that matters and one on offense that doesn't matter as well.
Okay, let's start with your offensive thing that matters. What is your offensive thing that matters on this first depth chart?
Yeah, and I'm going to take a page out. I believe it was Daniel who said this. It matters that Gunnar Helm is the tight end 2 on this team already because it is officially, I mean, this is something we've known for a long time, but has officially never been more over for Josh Whyle on this team with the situation. The fact that, 1, Gunnar Helm is tight end 2, which, by the way, Gunnar Helm has had some nice moments, but hasn't looked like a solid all-around tight end yet. Like, he has had his ups and downs through camp. It has been a learning experience for the 4th-round rookie. And the fact that he is already tight end 2 on this team on the depth chart, and DMR is tight end 3 on this team on the depth chart, and Josh Whyle is slotted all the way down there at tight end 4. He's now competing with Thomas Odukoya for the chance at survival to go deeper into training camp right now. Like, that matters a lot because that tells you kind of where this coaching staff is leaning with some of their guys. You have Josh Whyle, who was a presumed guy, a role player on this team last year, now falling all the way to the back because of risers like DMR and the draft pick in Gunnar Helm. And so I think you can start to realistically look at this room and say, I think you have 3 tight end locks in Chigakonkwo, Gunnar Helm, and DMR. And the question becomes, do they keep a 4th tight end? And if they do, is it going to be Thomas Odukoya to be that glorified inline blocker? Because I just don't see a role or a way that Josh Whyle can be on this team.
So one of my things that matters to me is not the fact that Gunnar Helm is tight end 2. It's the fact that Josh Whyle is so cut. Like what matters is where Josh Whyle is at on this depth chart. He is on that far right line. Most of those guys are getting cut that are on the very far right because there's only 53 spots. I don't think Josh Whyle has a chance in hell. Thomas Odukoya has a better shot to make this team as the 4th tight end. I think it's either 3 tight ends or Odukoya. There's no 4th tight end Odukoya or Whyle. To me, I think it's simply either 3 or Odukoya. And because Odukoya is the inline blocker, I've already mentioned this. I think it was last week. I can't remember if I was doing the show with you or Easton when I said this, but the first couple of successful big run plays that I saw in camp is pre-pads. One on the left, one on the right, one Tajay, one Tony Pollard. And both times, 89, Thomas Odukoya was the one who set the edge and sealed the bounce out lane for the running back. And I was like, I took note of that because the tight end conversation we have overall this past summer with Easton. So Darius asked a question: does Odukoya get granted a spot because of the international rule? So I don't know how this affects the 53-man roster. What I do know is that the Titans get a free practice squad spot for an international pathway player. So Daniel Caribbean just says it's the practice squad. So that's the gamesmanship of this, and the thing that helped Odukoya get in camp, but also might hurt him from being on the roster, is there another guy you can put on the 53 because now you can keep 17 on the practice squad instead of 16 on the practice squad? Like, that's a way to manipulate some numbers there. So that could be the one way that Odukoya is left off the 53 initially, but I expect him to be around this football team the entire season.
Yeah, and it's important to note that if he does go on that international practice squad player spot, he then cannot come up for another 3 weeks. Like it takes there is a waiting period and a grace period that a player must have, because when we were banging the drum either last year or the year before for Thomas Odukoya to finally get his run, well, you have to activate him from that spot, and then it takes another 2 to 3 weeks for whatever reason for him to then be eligible to be on the starting roster. So I think that's also a big indication of what they will do there, right? Because if you are putting him on that practice squad spot, you're not going to see him for a while. And so how badly will you need him?
Yeah, Chris Jump says the international pathway spot is hurting Odukoya more than helping him at this point. It's kind of like the Rooney Rule, is that it had really good intentions, but now it's not being used the right way because it's being manipulated to have, to hold somebody back on the practice squad, or the Rooney Rule. Like, the Rooney Rule interview. Like, every time there's a coaching change or GM change, we see that. I think it's a good intended rule, but a misused, manipulated rule as well. So, all right, we've gone through, each of us have done one thing that matters. What is another thing that matters, JT, about this unofficial depth chart?
Yeah, another thing that matters, I think, and this one's obviously, we're August 5th, and it's kind of funny that we're talking about this, but I do think it matters that for the special teams, at least, that James Prochet is listed as the punt returner currently, the number one punt returner. And I think that's funny, because I think James Prochet being listed as the punt returner matters, and then Jaquan Jackson being listed as the kickoff returner doesn't matter, which I know is a weird thing to say, but I do think that matters altogether, because obviously it is the first unofficial depth chart. But James Prochet has continued to look really good, and I think there is a way that, and this can get into the Xavier Restrepo conversation, no doubt, but if the Titans do end up keeping 7 wide receivers, I am pretty confident at this point it will be James Prochet or bust. Like, they either keep James Prochet or they go with 6 on their roster, because Chimere Dike is the backup right now for both those guys. So it's very easy to see that maybe Chimere Dike gets a couple punts, maybe he gets a couple kick returns, breaks one off, and you see him elevate himself to that starter role on one or the other. But what James Prochet has been doing so far in camp, which is just be noticeable, which I think a lot of these guys have not. Jaquan Jackson, a lot of drop balls, has not really shown up anywhere else. Xavier Restrepo, like we said, I was talking to guys in the media room the other day. Someone asked John Bones Fossil about Xavier Restrepo, and Bones Fossil is a guy who I think Easton said this. He could, me or him could try out for the team as a special teamer, and he would have glowing things to say about us from the get-go. That's just, he loves to hype up his players. But I think the most negative thing that Bones Fossil can say about a player is that he's been out there and doing work. And that's what Bones Fossil had to say about Xavier Restrepo and his work on the special teams. So, on the flip side, he has been really glowing on the type of thing that James Prochet can bring to a team on the special teams, especially as a gunner position. And so I think right now, with Prochet being the number one punt return starter, I think it matters that he is going to be that seventh receiver, or they're not going to keep a seventh receiver at all.
Okay. So we will put a pin in that opinion and come back to that later in the show. So more things that matter for me. I think another thing that matters, and this is kind of a broad answer, the second string rookies. I think that matters. And I'm looking at Gunnar Helm, who we've already talked about, Chimere Dike, Alec Iomanner, even Khalil Mullings. I think those are the four offensive second string rookies. And then I flip over to the defense and I look at the second string rookies of Femi Oladejo, Kevin Winston Jr., Marcus Harris. Jalen Kimber doesn't matter. I'm not involving him as much in this, but he's earned a second string corner spot, which is better than what some of these other guys can say, right? Like Jamari Harris. Clearly, Kimber has himself ahead of those other UDFA corners, right?
There's two former Cowboys secondary players who played meaningful snaps last year that are behind Jalen Kimber in Amani Oruwariye and Julius Woods. I guess he's a safety, but
right.
With Oruwariye, like, he is ahead of him. So.
Right. So second string rookies is where I'm starting with, because I think that's legitimate. I think these guys, while not necessarily day one starters, absolutely day one contributors, that matters. So they're going to be on the field. They're going to be getting after the passer with Femi Oladejo. Kevin Winston Jr. is going to be in a rotation. I don't think, I've said this so many times, I'm going to continue to repeat it. If the Titans had it their way, Kevin Winston Jr. stays safety 3 the entire year, because that means Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods stay healthy. And then you get to use Kevin Winston Jr. as like a wild card chess piece to do some cool stuff with 3 safeties.
Yeah.
And you can't do cool stuff with 3 safeties if you don't have 3 safeties that you can trust. And I like their 3 safety group right there. So second string rookies is my second thing that matters when looking at this depth chart. What is your last thing that matters when looking at the depth chart?
Yeah, I would say the starting offense is set. I think it matters. Like, this is what we've confirmed. Like, there's going to be no surprises. What you see is what you get on that first line. It's Arden Key and Draymond Jones rushing off the sides. Whether that's a good thing, we'll have to see, I guess. But when you line up against Denver on week 1, it is going to be much of the same of what you saw last year, except you switch out Draymond Jones for Harold Landry. And how does that improve, right? Are we going to see immediate improvement? I think that's where you can start to see, will it matter? Because how much Draymond Jones actually moves the needle on the defensive front, I don't think it's as much more than what we had in Harold Landry last year. But what are we going to see differently? Because with all of this hope and this talk this offseason about, hey, the pass rush was arguably one of the worst in the entirety of the league last year. And you look at the first unofficial depth chart and you see Sebastian Joseph Day, Tavondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, and a newcomer in Draymond Jones now in the fold. How that's almost the exact same, right? And the only silver lining is that Femi Oladejo is probably going to get some work in there, but currently he is not, fitting into those first team reps as much as I think we thought he might, right? He's been playing a lot this past weekend with the 2s, which I think is not nothing. And so I think that matters a lot, that when you look at it, all things said and done, on the first defensive line, it matters that nothing has changed. And so are we going to see things get better to start the season? I don't know, but they sound like they need to very, very fast.
Okay, so we will put a pin in that one because I don't disagree with you, but I think I look at that conversation from a little bit of a different view on, I think you're right about the people, but I think it's the alignment of the people that I'm going to come back to later on. So my last thing that matters on this unofficial depth chart before we get to what doesn't is James Williams Sr. Like him being starting right there at next to Cody Barton, that matters, right?
Yeah.
Cedric Gray, he is not going to win that job. Like James Williams Sr. has won, in my opinion, the starting job next to Cody Barton at inside linebacker. I think it is as clear as day. If they were going to do the whole like you get a week thing, they already would have done that. We are too deep. We are beyond that point. I think it's James Williams' job until he colossally messes up or gets hurt, and nobody wants that to happen for anybody. But that is where I'm at. That matters to me. James Williams Sr. is the starting inside linebacker next to Cody Barton, and I'll come back to that in a little bit on the whole defensive front thing. But what do you think about that? Because you didn't have that on your list of what matters, but do you agree that that's pretty set?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I wasn't going to put it on there because it's been set in stone, because I think we even got to talk finally to the position coaches. And as much as Frank Bush wanted to talk about how there was going to be a competition in the, I guess, off season with mini camps and OTAs, we asked him once again to follow up on that. And he did a rather poor job of trying to convince us that there still was going to be a competition. It is James Williams' job. I will say that, it's not like Cedric Gray or any of these other guys have fallen off. Cedric Gray is still linebacker too. Otis Reese being up there, I think, is a testament to what he does when the pads come on. He also is going to be a very, I think, impactful special teams player. So he's also your linebacker 4. I think that's a guy who was a little banged up in the offseason, and now he comes back with pads. I think he's a guy that is going to be on here, maybe a little bit of a surprise. I saw some people in the chat saying Otis Reese ahead of guys like Orgy or Curtis Jacobs. Like, yeah, when the pads come on, he just brings a little bit more juice. So, but the starting guys, James Williams and Cody Barton, like that's locked in.
Yeah, I was actually kind of not surprised, but kind of like, when Otis Reese was the backup to Cody Barton. Like that was kind of like, okay. Like that's how they see that,
Yep.
Because Cody Barton has been an absolute stud throughout training camp thus far. All right. So we've gone through our things that matter. I've got a pin and a couple of JT's things that matter that will be on my things that don't matter list in a way. So let's go ahead and ask the chat this question, JT. What does not matter when you're looking at this first unofficial depth chart? What does not matter when you're looking at the Titans unofficial depth chart? We'll go through that because things will change. There are things that are fillers. They have to do this exercise because they have a game on Saturday night. So what does not matter most when looking at this depth chart? We'll get to your answers on that one. JT and I each have 3 as well, which we are flying blind into this. We have no idea what is on each other's list. But real quick, don't fly blind when you're injured. When you're hurt, go to the experts. The Bone and Joint Institute is in Franklin, Tennessee, off Highway 96 and I-65, and they've got all the experts, whether it's the doctors, the physical therapists, the support staff, the equipment, the resources are all under one roof in Franklin at the Bone and Joint Institute. Because before the Bone and Joint Institute existed, I had one of my doctors, Dr. Scott Arthur, did my ACL surgery back years ago. Right? When JT was a young lad, I was getting an ACL reconstruction from Dr. Arthur. That was pre-BJI, right? And so what I had to do then was I had to go to one office and one location for the MRI, had to do a different office for the surgery, had to do the different office for my follow-up clinics and my pre-clinics, all these different, and then a whole different location for physical therapy. With the Bone and Joint Institute, it's all boom, right there under one roof. They literally do every step along the way of the process. So you don't have to remember, okay, where do I go for this? Where do I go for that? It's just one address, bang, right there. And if you have physical therapy needs, they do have other clinics and physical therapy locations around Williamson County that make it easier on you. just like I had to do last spring for some knee tendonitis where that ACL was. So make sure you go check them out whenever you have an injury in life, boneandjointtn.org.
Yeah, good to see you guys here. If you're joining us late in the show, make sure to like the show, so make sure you are subscribed, and then do us a favor and leave us a 5-star review on Google. That is ATOZ Sports on Google. Leave us a 5-star review. Write us a note, whether it is good criticism as well. We appreciate that. We want to make this show the best possible for you guys in 2025. But make sure you are leaving us a 5-star review over there. Let's look at the comments here, and we'll start off with IR Hoshi with a very pretentious what doesn't matter is that what doesn't matter is all the names he doesn't know, apparently. So, so good.
Which
good
included Dan Moore last week, right?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
People don't forget IR.
Yeah. Darius Horton saying Jaquan Jackson doesn't matter because he still thinks he doesn't make the team. A lot of the same sentiment here by Brandon Dozier says kick returner and punt returner doesn't matter for him. 90% of the right columns on the depth chart are filling those positions outside of Chimray DK. So you can take that one. Jeff says that the running back depth does not matter for him. Tall Texan saying Cam being number 1 doesn't matter for him. Bama says edge does not matter for him. Let's see. Daniel says what doesn't matter is the defensive line depth. That will change, apparently, according to him. Will we see some of those rookies finally start to bring up here?
Let's look at that.
With Cam Horsley, I guess, Isaiah Rakes. They brought in Josiah Bronson from the Memphis Showboats, and the UDFA darling on the defensive side of the ball, Devontae O'Malley from Boston College, does not make it far into camp because he is replaced by Josiah Bronson of the Memphis Showboats.
Let's continue this part because I haven't thought about this much because why? But of the second and third team defensive linemen, so I'm talking about the backups to SJD, Sweat, and Simmons. How many of those guys do you think you're confident saying make the team? Carlos Watkins, Timmy Horn, James Lynch, Bleedy, Bronson, Rakes, Horsley. How many of those guys can you say, oh, this guy's going to make the team and this guy's going to make the team?
I have one. I think James Lynch makes the team.
Same. That's the only one I got.
First of all, I mean, I know it's my job to know a lot of this team, but you could ask me which position before the show Timmy Horn played. I would not know. I would not have told you. I have no idea.
I would have because he was when I asked you guys who's the second heaviest player on the roster, he was one of the candidates because he's a big dude. Yes. So Horn backing up Sweat. That's kind of like, but do you need 2 nose tackles? No.
Yeah, right.
You don't so I don't think Timmy Horn makes a team. I agree. James Lynch is the only one that I can say, yeah, that guy's going to make it. And so that means there could, to Daniel Caribbean's comment, is there somebody not on this sheet that will be the 5th, defensive lineman that makes the 53?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility because the only one, like you were saying, James Lynch he's familiar. And I think he's also had a couple good practices. Like, I think he is a solid backup that you can play in situational positions. And he actually will bring something to your team on those actual downs, not just special teams. Like in the actual game, you can put him in, rotate him in, and he's going to not just be another player out there.
Right. You want to go back to the chat?
Yeah, we can go more here back to the chat. Zach says the 2 and 3 string, as long as people make the team, they will have a chance to prove themselves. So a lot of it does not matter to him. Patrick says QB 2 and 3 doesn't matter which order they're in. They both are dumpster juice. That's a new one.
I disagree though. I think
really
Brandon Allen is Tim Boyle is dumpster juice that has been outside in the dumpster in a summer heat. Brandon Allen is the dumpster juice that we've had with the weather the last 5 days where it's been like, 83. That's not as heated up boiling dumpster juice as Tim Boyle.
Yes. He's boiling out there in the dumpster heat. Apparently.
Although Tim Boyle did have a couple dimes that he threw on Saturday.
Yes.
That made people go, oh.
Let's see what else we have here in the chat. Just a couple more. Jody says Cedric Gray does not matter. I guess because he is not getting the starting job. I guess that is fair in a way.
Man, I was so high. I don't know how you felt, but like I thought Cedric Gray was a great draft pick that was going to come in and win that starting job day one last year, like be a green dot candidate. Remember all the green dot talk we had a year ago?
I do.
Like, oh, this guy's a captain. He's a 2-year captain.
I was a part of that.
Yes, and it just didn't happen. And like he got hurt, yeah, but he wasn't doing very well before he got hurt either.
Yes, and last one here. Damian says it does not matter that Xavier Restrepo is being buried. He should be a practice squad addition.
But doing what? What job on practice squad?
The new Mason Kinsey, but he's gonna have to rise above Mason Kinsey, which he currently is not on the depth chart to be the new Mason
I don't know.
Kinsey.
I will say this about Restrepo. I mentioned this yesterday with Easton on the show that two rookies have started to get sprinkled in 1 reps with Alec Iumaner and Daniel and Gunnar Helm are getting 1 team reps sprinkled in that rotation. Xavier Restrepo is starting to get the 2nd team reps sprinkled in.
Yes.
That's progress.
It is, but is he going to do anything with those? Because
he did on Sunday. He caught a 7-on-7 touchdown from Brandon Allen.
7-on-7.
Well, I mean, would he have scored? He could have been. They spotted him down like the 3, but I think it would have got in if it was a finished, the play situation. But they spotted him on the 3-yard line to run a play from the 3-yard line.
I hope he continues to get those second reps, mostly though, maybe even this week against the Buccaneers. And it's going to be fascinating to watch him in the preseason games, because you want to talk about where his snaps matter. It's going to be in those preseason games. Totally. We can talk about him continuing to rise up with the 1 or the 3 2s and 1s and getting there into practice. But if he doesn't show up against another team, like we're going to continue to say that he does not matter and is a practice squad addition.
Another thing about Restrepo. So there was another play. I think this was 11-11 on Sunday. He ran a route. He was lined up on the near sideline where the offensive players are lined up to. He ran a route, got open. The ball didn't come to him, but literally the entire wide receiver group and Tyke Tolbert, the wide receiver coach, standing on the sideline, all of them, good route, Strep, good route, Strep. And so it wasn't, he was wide open. The ball just went elsewhere. So that's one of those things that you just don't notice him because he hasn't been getting the target as much. Okay. So, JT, you have 3 things that don't matter. What's your first thing that doesn't matter?
Yeah, my first one is I guess I kind of said one already, and this was a kind of matters, kind of doesn't. So it was kind of cheating. But the fact that Jaquan Jackson is the kickoff returner, like I think that does not matter because, like I said, I think when you look at it, when all is said and done, it's going to be Chimere Dike on both. It's going to be Chimere Dike on kickoff returns and James Prochet on punts, or it's going to be James Prochet on both if they do keep him. Like if they do not keep 7 and they just go with the 6, it's going to be Chimere Dike's job, which I think is kind of currently where he sits on that depth chart, right? He's the backup to Tyler Lockett on the depth chart for the offensive side of the ball. He's the backup to the kickoff returner and the punt returner right now on the depth chart. And I think where you see the starters right now with James Prochet as the punt returner and Jaquan Jackson as the kickoff returner, I think that's more signaling to them where they stand currently on this competition, right? It's not for, actual who's going to be on this team, because then that would be 8 receivers on the roster, which is not going to happen. But for that competition alone, this is signaling to them, this is who is currently in the leader spot for those, but you need to do more because Chimere Dike is right behind you guys.
I think the returner slots is on my list of things that doesn't matter because those are placeholders.
Right. It only matters for Prochet if he does make the roster.
Yeah, but I don't think it matters because I think there's no data. Like they don't have anything because you don't get any live returner reps to this point in training camp. That is a joint practice and a preseason game job 1.
Fair
you can find out who can do a gunner job or who can be a protector or defend a gunner in practice with those reps. But like everybody's going to catch the ball when it comes out of the jugs machine. Like if you're not catching punts in practice when nobody's coming at you, you're not live, it's either coming off of a punter's foot or a jugs machine, then you're not going to be a part of this. But so I think it's a placeholder because when you're looking at the James Prochet and Jaquan Jackson there, like the other guys behind them have literally never played in a game. Like,
yeah.
So James Prochet and Jaquan Jackson, those two guys are there because they've actually done it in an NFL game. Jaquan Jackson has done it in an NFL game poorly, but he's still done it in a game. James Prochet has been very good when he's done it in the NFL as a punt returner. So like I'm with you. I think they just didn't want to have the same guy in both spots. So to me, the returner slots don't matter at all at this point. That it will matter more like when they go to Atlanta and we get the depth chart for the Falcons game. How does that change? Because you get one joint practice in a preseason game. How does that change 1 week to the next? And I think that's something I'm watching for.
Yeah, I do want to bring something up real quick because I think this is interesting. Ray Skull said that the Titans just signed a safety. They did sign a safety during our show from Jordan Schultz. They signed Joshua Bledsoe, formerly of the Patriots and Steelers. So they add another safety to that room. But I bring that up because I do believe the Titans were already at the roster cap. Mixing up my words there. So like, who's the guy that gets waived for him? So like, is there a guy that we talked about this morning that's going to get waived later today when the official media release comes out? So I maybe that gives us some insight to maybe they decide to release another defensive tackle because they brought in the guy from the UFL. So I don't know, but I thought that was important just to update everybody because that did drop like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, and we do not have an email from Dwight yet making that official. So we don't know the corresponding move, but head on a swivel. Somebody getting cut if they don't already know. All right, so other things that don't matter. JT, where are you going with your next on the list?
Yeah, my next one, I'm going to actually go to the offensive line. And maybe this, you might disagree with this, but I do think that where specifically the tackles are listed with Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu, I don't think it matters that one is listed at left tackle and one's listed at right tackle. I think at the end of the day, if they're both on this roster, they will both be swing tackles and not just be a position to position. Because I do think for all the glowing reviews that Jalen Duncan has gotten out of camp, most of those playing at the left tackle position, him now being the right tackle, I think signals nothing more than all these guys who are backups, whether they're playing a tackle position, whether they're playing a guard position. Center, of course, is different. But if you're a guard or a tackle, you are going to be, and you're a backup, you are going to expected to be able to swing on both sides of the line. So people who are saying, oh, John Ojukwu is now the left tackle and is now beat out Jalen Duncan for that spot. I don't think that's, I think what matters more is that, yes, John Ojukwu and Jalen Duncan are now your backup guys, and that they've now gotten to that point.
Who's first off the bench?
Jalen Duncan.
Okay, so you think Duncan's over Ojukwu? I
do.
Do you think Ojukwu is still your jumbo extra tight end, or is it Duncan?
Now you want to talk about something that might matter. Like I do think Ojukwu is absolutely their inline guy. So like I think currently Thomas Odukoya, going back to the tight ends, like his competition now is not with Josh Wiley maybe, but it's more with who's going to be that inline blocker. Is it going to be Ojukwu or is it going to be Thomas Odukoya?
Yeah.
Because I think that's currently what your situation is. It is John Ojukwu and Jalen Duncan as your two swing tackles right now, with Ojukwu being that jumbo tight end.
But Duncan is the replacement tackle ahead of Ojukwu.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get it. They're kind of playing different positions in a little bit. Hey, good observation, JT. I agree.
Yeah. I even with like Blake Hance and Andrew Rupsich, like you said, like Andrew Rupsich right now is listed as the left guard, but when Kevin Zeitler didn't practice, he was playing in his spot at right guard. Like these are guys that are going to have to switch either side, no matter what. So
my second thing that does not matter is I don't think it matters. Do I want to go with the disagreement with you, or do I want to go with the other one? I'll go with the disagreement first.
Okay.
I don't think it matters who is listed as a starter on the defensive front. Like they've got Sebastian Joseph Day, Devondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, and Draymond Jones. So that's a true 3-4 look.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a damn what the starting lineup's going to look like because that's not how it's going to work. I think they're going to play more 3 edge reps, more 3 safety reps than they will play traditional 3-4 reps. I think they're going to be so multiple that I don't care that, like, yes, if you were to line up and do a 3-4 traditional like alignment, yeah, these guys are the ones that'll do it. But this is not what the Titans defense is going to look like because you've got Femi Oladejo and Kevin Winston Jr., who are true wild card joker roles and players that have multiple skill sets that you can use in so many exotic ways. And the little nugget of information that I think that we're overlooking because we're focusing on Cam Ward is I think the reason why the Titans defensive installation is as blitz heavy and multiple and chaotic and aggressive is because that's how they're going to have to get pressure.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you on that.
It does help Cam Ward, but that's also how the defense is going to have to win. The defense is going to have to win by being crazier than the offense. You know who wins in streets fights? The crazier one. not the one who's a better fighter. The crazier guy wins street fights. I think that's the way the Titans have to view this defense. It's a street fight. Be so crazy that they don't want anything to do with you. Like that's how they're and Femi, Winston, the combination of them, Arden Key, Draymond Jones, SJD, Sweat, Jeff, and then James Williams too. Like James Williams and Femi could swap alignment for on a play and have James rush off the edge and Femi play in the middle. They're going to be crazy. They have to be. So that's where I think I don't care about the starting alignment.
Yeah, no, I think that absolutely matters because, yeah, like you said, they're not doing this just to mess with Cam, right? They're doing this because also they're going to basically, I think Denard is what they're doing with the defense right now is they're going to play 3 teams who have very intense and intricate defenses upcoming with the Bucks, with the Falcons, and then with the Vikings. Finishing with the Vikings, I think, is important because I think that is what Denard Wilson is trying to maybe take a little bit from last year in what they run because it's very similar. The Vikings run they don't have a lot of notable names on that front with outside of Jonathan Grenard. Dallas Turner maybe turns into something, but like they have a couple wild cards up there as well, and Andrew Van Ginkel and those guys. And so what you're seeing is very much like that. You're going to see those. So I do think that's important.
Yeah.
Does it matter because we saw a lot of these guys play last year for this team and still struggle to get that pressure? Like, is the change in philosophy with just being as crazy as possible and throwing as many looks in a game and hoping that your guys are ready and prepared to do that and are all on the same page snap after snap? Does that finally lead to success? I don't know. Is it like that? Is it going to matter anyways? Because we saw a lot of these guys and the pass rush potential they had last year, which a lot of these guys were the same, wasn't good enough to get after the quarterback. So is it going to matter at all? I don't know.
Cap says, I disagree on the street fight analogy. The trained fighter wins most of the time. Okay. It goes in waves, right? Because I'm not talking about the guy who is in the jiu-jitsu gym 5 days a week who just happens to find himself in a street fight. Because would you prefer to have a TJ Watt, a Myles Garrett? Would you prefer to have the trained street fighter on your defense who can just get after the passer without having to draw it up? Yeah, that would be the preference, right? But if you're having just a random street fight, if it's a random collection of guys that are playing defense or getting into a scuffle, I want the crazier one is going to win over the other average one. And so Titans right now have average fighters on defense. They don't have the trained guy. So they got to be crazier. That's the analogy there, Caps. So, because it would be easiest if they, just go trade for Micah Parsons. And now you've got the trained fighter, but that's not reality. They're not going to do that. They're not going to give up 2 first-round picks to get the trained guy. They're going to have to be crazy this year. And I think they've got the personnel to do it, honestly. So I think that's, thank you. If 2 randos fight, crazy wins. That's the analogy. Not if a rando gets in a fight with a trained guy, that's not going to go very well for the rando. All right, so last thing that does not matter, JT, on your list, what is it?
Yeah, and I'm going to agree. I think it was Jeff in the comments who said this. I think the running back depth doesn't matter, mostly because I think it is pretty set. I think they keep 3 this time around. I think it's Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears, and Khalil Mullings. Kind of similar to the tight end situation. If they keep a 4th, it's going to be Julius Chestnut for his special teams ability. But I think we talked about this. I think it was last week's show when I was on with Easton. The things that we are, the things we're going to change our minds about 5 practices in. And one of mine was the fact that Khalil Mullings is now the running back 3. Like, I'm changing my mind about that, and I think he's already gotten that spot. We see this with the depth chart. He is already running back 3 on this team. I do think that there's going to be a lot more diversified use of the running backs this season upcoming. You're going to see all 3 of those guys, at different percentages, but all 3 guys be used in a game much differently than what they had last year. And I think, it doesn't matter for Julius Chestnut or any of these other guys. Like, Khalil Mullings is the running back 3. I think he's looked good in camp so far as well. And so that position battle doesn't matter to me.
That's fair. I think my last thing that does not matter, then we'll get the shade. So if you have your shade, start prepping your shade for this Tuesday. My last thing that does not matter is the fact that Van Jefferson is above Alec Ayumanner. I think you need both of them. I don't think it matters what order they're listed in, because that is a or B. That is a 1A, 1B at who is your starter at outside receiver opposite of Calvin Ridley. I think both of those guys will play fairly equally. So I do not care that Van is above Alec. I think same line is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. It's one I didn't really think about. I just kind of, because with a lot of the starters, I was like, veterans up there first. Veteran gets the first line, but then you talk about it. Yeah, I definitely do think that Alec Ayumanner should be up there with Van Jefferson, because I think if you talk about any wide receiver who in the last 4 days of padded practice, I guess we'll go with 3 because of the weekend. The one of the stars of the weekend was Alec. He continues to look better and better with the pads on. And I think that's something that the coaches talked to us about. We were talking all last week in some of those individual drills, like, hey, Alec looks pretty bad on the ladder drill in those individuals. And a lot of the coaches are like, just wait for him to get on the pads and see that separation. And that's something he's done. And I think the connection with him and Cam is growing. And I think that's really important for the offense, so much so, like you said, I think they both play similar snap percentages.
Noah says, little super chat, Titans run a base nickel pretty much, mostly 4-2-5. I think there's a chance for some 5-1-5, guys. Like, I think it's going to be that crazy. Yeah, 4-2-5, kind of, if you count Arden as one of the 4. Or it could be a 3-3-5 if you count Arden as one of the second level guys. However you want to do that, but I think there's here's where the 5-1-5 comes into play. It's Finney, Arden, Draymond, and Jones with Jeff, and then either Tavondre or Joseph Day.
Yeah,
that's the 5-1, and then Cody Barton in the center. And then the 5, you either have Roger McCray on the field as your nickel corner or Kevin Winston Jr. as your bigger nickel.
Like a hybrid.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of 5-1-5 in this defense.
As much as I want to agree with Noah, I will say, like, and this is not like reporting on this, but I did find it interesting this weekend that the Titans played a lot more other sub packages than they did nickel. I think they only ran nickel like twice the entire weekend. So it was interesting. Which goes into the different looks that they're trying to give Cam. So but the fact that, like, when you're talking about they run base nickel a lot of the time, They haven't so far. Like, they've been throwing everything different at him. Like, I think it was really important because I was talking to Paul Kaharski, and he was like, wow, they're finally actually running nickel. And I was like, yeah, wait, this is crazy. They're finally actually doing that. It was weird.
What I just kind of thought about, I was like, what I don't know right now is Snead's not in, right? So Daryl Baker Jr. is the starter outside. I haven't picked up on this, but when Kevin Winston Jr. is the third safety on the field, does Roger come off or does Roger kick Baker off? I haven't paid attention.
I have no idea. I haven't really watched that either, so that'll be interesting as well.
Yeah. All right. Last super chat here. King VC says, lock in, like the show, because I saw somebody threw shade, said, for the people that are in here that have not liked the show yet, what are you doing? Throwing shade at them. So it is the easiest thing you could possibly do that helps us the most, and that's just liking the show. But it is now time to throw some shade to wrap up this Tuesday. If you have shade, bring it. We will read the good ones and maybe some of the bad ones. Throw some shade. Here we go on a Tuesday. Shout out Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Go see them in Lebanon or online. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where to go for your new ride in Lebanon. Once again, Painbone does a great job. His family-owned and operated company with helping you find the new ride. WilsonCountyHyundai.com. All right, shade time. Throw some shade. If you've got shade, throw it in the chat. Do you want to – you see shade?
I do. I see a couple. Well, first of all, Rooney says, no shade, life's good. Boring. Sometimes you can be a hater when life's good. Like, I appreciate
this
that.
is meant to be a first world problem segment. Like,
yes.
This is meant to be like the pettiest problem that you possibly have.
Yeah. And let's see who else here. I like Jeff's here. Shade at Caleb Williams for acting like a toddler after missing. I think it wasn't just 3. I think it was all of his passes on a net drill. I don't know if you saw that clip, but he like literally missed all the passes on the net drill and walked off super angrily. And it like the net was like 5 feet away from him. Mm-hmm. So like, I guess it is fair to be mad because if you're that bad at the net drill, maybe you should be more angry at yourself, but he did look like a toddler out there. I think that is funny. Let's see what else we have here. Noah says massive shade. There you go.
He's got super chat for his massive shade.
Oh, okay.
Here it is. Been waiting for this. Sadly, missed the Traylon Burks 16 cut show. Would have been fun, but had to put not good. Had to put pup down due to my local vet charging $3,000 for surgery. Tough week. I'm sorry to hear that. That's brutal.
Yeah, that is brutal.
I thought that was going to be more of a shade on Traylon Burks in the situation rather than that. But
took a turn.
Yeah, it did take a turn. Yeah, it sure did. I'm really sorry to hear that. That's the worst. All right, more shade. Do you see some more shade there, JT?
Yeah, Vanessa says shade on dropping the creamer all over the floor today. That happens. Oof. Yes.
Can you cry over spilled creamer?
Shade on door-to-door salesman. I guess Caps has been dealing with some door-to-door salesmen, so fair enough.
It's a tricky one because, like, look, guys are just out there trying to make a living, right? And
fair enough.
And that's a hard thing. You get told no, like 90% of the time. For the 10% that tell you yes, to then go try to convert them. So, yeah, I don't like dealing with door-to-door salesmen, but I also respect the grind of the door-to-door salesman.
Jason Martinez says shade at the Indianapolis Colts for not deciding who their starter is going to be. I think, they're being wimps about that because there's been like 3 good Anthony Richard practices back to back to back. Yet I still think Daniel Jones probably wins that job. Maybe you can throw shade on me for that take, but Edward saying shade. My neighbor is cutting grass right now on a Tuesday at 9:13 a.m. It's kind of hard for me to hear. So, hey,
when would you prefer him to cut grass?
That is a good one.
I think it's a pretty considerate time to do it when everybody else is mostly at work and not home.
Andre says shade on Zach for rarely being on the show anymore. Favorite host. Well, he'll be back when the actual football starts.
Yeah.
So fair enough. Charlie says shade on Paul Feinbaum for always over-hating the Vols just to prove he's not biased.
It happens.
Is that fair?
Keep up. It's like I don't think Paul Feinbaum discriminates his hate. But I do like, there is like the thing, and I was honestly guilty of this for a time in my younger career of being a Tennessee Vols grad and feeling the pressure to be tougher on them to prove that I'm not biased. So I think that's natural, but yeah, it happens.
Yeah, and then Sean King, I think this one, shade on Jerry Jones. Guy is weird. Pay Simmons or pay Parsons or trade him to Tennessee. So
Solo Mitch says, shade on y'all self for this garbage ass stream. Solo Mitch, I've seen several of your comments. You don't have to. You can keep commenting your poop emojis if you want to, like you're 12. or you can just go do something else with your day. That's fine.
This is true.
If you don't like our show, don't watch it. That's fine. We have a lot of people that do like our show that watch it, and we appreciate them, and we like when they like the show. So if you don't like Solo Mitch's comments on our show, hit our like button because that goes a long way. All right, JT, what's your shade?
My shade. Okay, so this is one I found this morning as I was scrolling my Twitter timeline, and I'm throwing shade at fantasy football creators in general because as somebody who is in the sports media market, like fantasy football creators are a big part of that, and so much so that there are probably too many of them. I think there are way too many of them. I think there are some people who do it well. There are even more people who do it terribly. And this one came across my timeline this morning, who I'm not going to say his name, but this is one that I just found. So this is just so terrible. He says, any folks out there looking to become fantasy football creators, I have a course that I'm offering for $1,000. Drop a comment if interested. What are we doing? What are we doing? We're starting to make
pyramid schemes.
Fantasy football. We're making fantasy football content pyramid schemes now, folks. Like, is this where we really are? Like, stop it. Fantasy football content has gone too far. We need to stop it. I'm throwing shade at it.
That is hilarious. Hilarious. That reminds me, I haven't seen it in a long time. There used to be like a Instagram story ad that I would see. It's like, do you want to get a career in sportscasting? And it was like, just do this and you'll be interviewing your favorite athletes too. I'm like, that's not how that works at all either. So hilarious. Like, yeah.
Vanessa says it's a Ponzi fantasy football scheme. Exactly.
See, here's the thing. You have real universities like Lipscomb University doing this legitimately to help you learn how to do sports analytics and put yourself in a lot of different avenues, not just fantasy football. That could be a path for Lipscomb University sports analytics program, but
I know there are fantasy football like programs out there that, or I guess programs like sites that use real analytics and like do the work. And those guys are doing really good work. And then there are people like this who are charging $1,000 to rage bait people on the daily with tweets and think that's a career. So
my shade is I'm going to tease our probable conversation for tomorrow. But my shade is like, I tweeted yesterday after the show and it just got it got way too much interaction for me to want to deal with it. And like, it has 38 replies, 37,000 views about the whole stop using bad practices to prove that Brian Callahan is a bad coach and people not understanding the difference in what I'm trying to say. It's people's narratives that they're already set in stone about somebody before giving them an opportunity. I don't know if Brian Callahan's a good coach or a bad coach. I don't know if he's going to get fired this year or not get fired this year. But what I do know is that we should stop using weekend practices in early August to determine that. It doesn't correlate. It's not. So I want more nuanced and more understanding from people that want people's jobs. If you think somebody deserves to be fired, take that seriously with your opinion and not just hastily throw something out because that is somebody's livelihood, somebody's income, some kid's food, somebody else's opportunity, right? It's if you're going to call for somebody's job, back it up with something that's legitimate, not just being a ridiculous fan that calls for somebody's job. So that's my shade.
I'm excited for that topic tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a good one.
So what we're gonna ban aggressive, whatever.
Because for all the, I guess you could talk about shade that a certain owner of a Tennessee football team, the shade that she gets for being rash and, quick to make decisions. The type of things that I see on Twitter and from other people about a certain coach's job makes me think that the fans might be more rash and quick to decision than someone they like to throw shade on. So
we're going to do a poll tomorrow morning, like right from the very beginning of the show. That is just where are you already out on Brian Callahan? And it's a yes or no. And I care more about the percentage of yeses than I care about the no's.
It's going to be a fascinating one.
And that's, so get ready. That's tomorrow morning. And we're going to I want to know where people are at and why they're there. And if Brian Callahan has an opportunity to win them back. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's my shade today.
It's going to be fun. Can't wait.
It's going to be spicy. All right, guys, that is it for us on this Tuesday. Make sure you do hit that like button. Again, the easiest thing you could possibly do for us that goes a long way for us. No sweat off your back. Just hit the like button on Facebook and on YouTube. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow morning on a Wednesday. Easton Freeze live on A to Z Primetime tonight. And then the Titans practice tomorrow morning back on the field before heading to Tampa right after practice for a quick turnaround for joint practice. We'll catch you guys later on. Appreciate it as always. See ya.